Welcome, everyone, to the February edition of Conversations with Archbishop Kurtz. We have a great show ahead for you today. We're going to talk about marriage, we're going to meet a young missionary, and then we get to do the question box. People sent us a lot of questions for Archbishop Kurtz, so we got a lot to do for you. Welcome, Archbishop.
Oh, thanks, Brian. It's great to be with you for this month.
Yeah. Now, February is a month of Valentine's Day. Now, we're not going to talk about St. Valentine, but I want to talk about the fact that lots of folks in February is the month they get engaged. A lot of young couples, or even not so young couples, use that as the time to ask someone to marry them. So this is an important topic for the church, because lots of young people and not so young are asking this question about what are the rules about marriage in the church? And it begins with very basic things like, why do I have to get married in a church?
Yeah.
And those kinds of questions. So help me.
It does, Brian. And I don't want to come off as an old fuddy-duddy, as they say. But here's the basic principle. A wedding is for a day. Marriage is for a lifetime. So the church, and we hope that the couple preparing for marriage are going to be more deeply concerned about what's going to happen for the rest of their life. And sometimes when we get into what the so-called destination marriages, it's so much about the details of that day that the day overshadows the long-term events. So the church wisely says, bring Christ into this day of your wedding. What you're doing is a very sacred action. So people will say, well, it's really private. It's up to us what we want to do. And the church would say, no, wait a minute. It's deeply personal. Absolutely, it's deeply personal. It's deeply romantic. But it's not private. It's public. And when people begin to see that the role of love in their marriage, we call it an agape love, is, yes, romantic, but it's a romantic love that is meant to eventually deepen and become heroic, and even at times sacrificial. And it's at that time, in the depth, that we need the Christian witness of married couples. So we're hoping that their wedding will capture the fullness of that. So it doesn't become simply, well, we want to make it very special and private, and it becomes, let's take our vows, I don't know, in a hot air balloon or something like that. I can understand how they want to make it very, very fun, etc. But the church says, open your mind now as you're planning, couple, to the fact that you're preparing not just for a one-day wedding, but rather for a marriage of a lifetime.
Is there something about sacred space that contributes to that?
I think it does. I think it does. I think we used to say that the thing that binds people together in a marriage, a Christian marriage, would be the presence of Christ, which keeps them basically from being completely selfish. A selfish marriage without Christ says, well, it's a 50-50 operation, and I'm going to take my 50% first. When you come into a sacred space and you realize this is a vocation, this is a calling, and so marriage is not 50-50. It's, I'm going to give my spouse 100% of my love, and I pray he will give the same to me, or she will give the same to me. And in that process, we need Christ's presence. And the sacredness, I think, is something that is part of the witness that we mentioned. Admittedly, it's difficult, because I think today people are looking to do things very uniquely. Sure. And in fact, I've said to our priests, if you think that there is an exception that needs to be made in some fashion, write to me about it. But when you write to me, don't just say this couple wants this or this couple wants that. Tell me why this is going to help this couple more deeply be engaged in the life of love for the rest of their lives. How is this going to actually further their witness? And if it doesn't, then we've probably lost an opportunity.
Sure.
Yeah.
Those opportunities is a good question, because one of the times where younger couples most often, or young adults meet the church, is around wedding planning. And how do we make the church practice that sense of hospitality? How do we help them?
Yeah. Well, the first thing you got to do is you got to see the people first. You got to love the people who are coming to you. I mean, here's a couple in love with each other. They are excited about their life. You hope they are. And in that process, I think you used the word hospitality. We need to welcome and walk with couples. So it is important that the priest or the deacon or the couples who are helping in marriage preparation first see that person. The worst thing would be that the first thing we say is, here's all the regulations, here's what you have to do, you don't. Well, that turns people off because they think, well, you're not concerned about me, you're just concerned about laws. So it is true that that's the first thing we need to do. I think we need to give people a catechesis in this sense, a vision of all that their love can be. And I think people, when they hear that, they're curious. They say, well, yeah, we want our love to deepen. We want to grow more deeply in love with each other and more generous with each other.
In your time as a pastor, a priest, a bishop now, how have you, when you've done weddings, what do you advise the couples? What's that
well,
about?
you know what, I always like to meet with the couples ahead of time, and part of it is to begin with hearing a little bit about what they've already done and what they already know. The worst thing you can do is give lectures to somebody who maybe knows more about marriage than you do. And so it is listening, and it's kind of entering into their relationship and seeing how you can help foster things. I always liked to talk to couples about what couples do they admire.
Oh, very good.
When I had when the Synod on Evangelization, my intervention had to do with missionary couples, couples who are willing publicly to give themselves as an example. So any way that I can do that, that's why I love the fact that married couples are engaged in the process of helping prepare couples.
Yeah, and folks should know that anytime you are thinking around these lines, our Family Ministries office has many resources, and there's lots of ways to prepare.
You're going to put a number up there?
Yeah,
maybe
that'd be great.
Put
we
a
can
number
do that. Yeah,
so that people can call if they say, well, gee, I do have a question. And sometimes they say, well, my niece or my nephew's getting married. Let me get some information for them. So you can kind of get the word out to people
and to help them connect with a priest, a deacon who can help them with that relationship. I know that as long ago as Kathy and I were married 38 years, and we remember the priests who were part of that story all that time ago.
Well, your witness is important too. Thanks, Brian.
Sure. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into segment 1. We're going to be right back with a special young missionary. You get to meet them.